Hi Anuj.
Hi guys. So be with us. We'll start at 10:05. Okay. I think just 1 minute to go. All right, guys. So I hope I'm audible clearly to you. Can you say yes? So I will just go ahead.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
For me, it's yes.
So I'm Anuj, and today we are here for Palo Alto firewall session. So let me understand you first that are you guys aware of this CCNA level of knowledge in the networking or not? Because this is very essential. If you don't have this much of knowledge of CCNA, it is going to be a tough time for you going ahead with the firewalls. So, do you have some basic knowledge? I mean, you don't have the certification for that one, but at least you have knowledge of networking, subnetting, are what are they? So, do you have some basic understanding?
Yes,
Yes.
Anish.
Okay,
Yes,
that's
yes.
that's great. So, let me just tell you basically that what is the difference between the firewall and other packet devices you are having. So it will be easy for you. Okay. So basically, just because we are starting from scratch, so you should be able to understand that what is the difference between the things, other devices, and the firewall. So I just switch on to the switch first. So if you know the switches, what they do, they make this is a layer 2 device, and this makes a decision based on the MAC address table. So if you have basic understanding of networking, you know that what is this MAC address table. So any of the frame comes, it comes to switches, and then the decisions are being taken via switch that on which interface or on which VLAN it has to be sent. If we come to layer 3, that is our routers. These are all packet based devices, right? So routers is our layer 3 device that also process the packets, and this looks on the IP routing table. Like any of the packet is coming, it lookups the destination IP address that where it should go, and based on its IP routing table, it takes the decision that on which interface it should go out, and it just send it to that interface. Now, if we come to the firewall, what it does, this is normally a flow-based device. If we talk about the flow-based, so some of the things of the firewall are also being done via the routers. Let us suppose we are having the access control list. They are ACL, right? So you can block some of the users based on the source IP address, or if you want to restrict some of the destination addresses which are not to be accessed by the user. So we can take these decisions via routers using ACL, access control list. So these terminologies can be different by the different vendors. So this is like Cisco uses the ACL, Juniper uses some other terminologies, and some other networking company may use some others terminology as well. So I think somebody was asking that it is being recorded or not. So yes, it is. It is live on YouTube as well. So it will be stored there. You can watch it later on as well. And now when it comes to the firewall, so it does the all the features of the switches. It means that we have inbuilt switches inside the firewall. We have the routing things inside the firewall. It means that it contains the routing table as well. It may take decision based on its source and destination IP address, as well as what it does, which these devices doesn't do, because these two devices comes between L1 to L3, right? Now this is also including from L4 to L7. So now the question comes at what is that difference between these two. So for that, what we say, there's two types of firewall currently. Some of them are legacy firewall, and another type we call it as a next gen firewall. So what are the legacy firewalls? They are taking decisions from L1 to, or in fact, I should also include L4, because they are taking the decisions based on the port number as well. So whenever the port is included, then we take the layer 4, right? So L1 to L4, these are legacy firewalls, which just takes the decision based on L1 to L4. But they do not take care of the L7. Let us suppose any of the firewall want to take decision based on the URL filtering, or what are the file types are traveling. Let us suppose you want to block any of the PDF file, or you want to block .exe or executable files on your network or your company, then you don't have capabilities on your routers or the legacy firewalls that they can block it. For that, you have to go to next generation firewalls. So this is like a very prominent questions being asked in interviews, that what is the difference between the legacy firewall and next generation firewall. So now I think you understand that what is the difference between them. So cut it short, our Palo Alto firewall is a next generation firewall. It takes the decision, or it has the capability to control the traffic from L1 to L7. It make uses of like routing, switching, and as well as all the features of file blocking, app ID, and all. So these all the things can be done via Palo Alto firewall. Let's move further back to our blue color. And if I talk about the flow based here, flow means whenever any of the traffic is being initiated, let us suppose this is our firewall, and let me say that this is our internal network on left hand side. I think the font size are visible, guys, right?
Yes.
Okay, true. And this can be your outside. And if any of the user is requesting any of the packet from here, or I think let me change the color so that will make you look good. Oh, it's all gone. Let me take eraser here. So if any of the user is requesting any packet or any like request is going from inside zone to outside. So as any of the packet goes to the firewall, will check its security policy. We have some of the policies installed in the firewall, right? It will just check that whether this user, which as having some of the IP addresses, or if we have the policy based on its username, then it will check its user whether this user is allowed to go outside or not first, and then to which destination. Let us suppose he is trying to access any news website, and we have a policy to allow to reach to news website, then it will go. But if he is trying to access, let us suppose, YouTube, and you have a policy in your company that users are not allowed to access YouTube, then it will be blocked here in the firewall. You will not be allowed to access YouTube. So this is like one type of request that, because you are requesting something from your firewall first time, there is a no records in the firewalls that whether you are accessing it or not. So if the packet is coming the first time, so it will take a decision that whether you have to allow it or not. Let us suppose you are trying to access a news site. Now, what is happening? You requested from inside to outside any news website, and now news server is replying you back, right? So there will be some return traffic because you are reading some web page. So some return traffic will be coming. Now, it is the feature of, or you can say the benefit of the firewall, that it will not check this again in the security policy. Why? Because the request was initiated from our inside, or we can say the trust zone, for which we already have explicitly security policy to allow the traffic. We will not require to configure one more security policy for the return traffic. So now the question comes that how this thing can be maintained, that the request has been known or it is like coming the first time, right? So it can be like the already we have requested, or this request is coming the first time. Now you have to differentiate it between these two. So for that, we are maintaining a session. So as we are here maintaining as here MAC address, IP routing, here we are maintaining the session table. Like if any of the request is going from trust to untrust, or from inside to any zone, in fact, then that session is being installed in the firewall. The firewall maintains its session, that whether this user has been permitted or not. Once the return traffic will be coming, it will look up on its session that whether this request is a new, or it has already been requested and this is a reply packet. So this can be understand very clearly if you know the TCP three-way handshake. Anyone aware of this TCP three-way handshake? Or let me ask that till now, if you have any question, let me know. Are you guys getting it, or you have any questions?
Yeah. Hi, Anuj.
Hi, yeah.
I have a question. Like that session, where is it stored? Like in firewall session table.
If you have gone through the firewall, it is like session browser, you can say, or it is speak on the memory, you can say, and there it is being installed. If you
Okay.
check the Palo Alto for specifically, you can look to the session browser. There is
Hmm.
a tab, and there you can see that which are the sessions are running,
Okay.
and whatever
Okay.
the traffics are being allowed or passing through, that you can see on the traffic window. So basically, we can see the sessions on this session browser tab. So once we look on
Okay.
the GUI later on, then we will see
Mhm.
that how
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
session will be done.
Thank you.
So let me clear that. So as you are asking less questions, so am I teaching very good, or you're not getting anything? How is it that I'm not teaching good or you're getting everything? At least say yes or no, so I will get something. Guys, are you there?
Yes, yes, you're teaching good.
Oh, okay. So at least say yes or no, so it just gives me confidence. Okay, that how I'm doing. Okay.
Yeah, we have text a message, Anuj.
Oh, I think let me check it. So because when I'm teaching, I'm just a little bit focused on that. Let me keep checking the messages as well. Okay, that's fine. I will just have a look on that. Yeah. Yes. So if you know about the TCP three-way handshake, what is happening that if any of the TCP request is going, right? So first, what is happening? The SYN bits one packet is being sent to the server. So it is like you are initiating a request. If any of the machine here is sending traffic to any web server, right? So what it will do, it will send a packet with SYN bit on. What happens with the server if you are sending a request on port number, let us suppose 443, or be specific, let us suppose port 8080, and if that service is running on that server, what it will do, it will reply with SYN plus tech, that it will acknowledge it, okay, that I have received your SYN bit, and now it will reply its own SYN bit, and this will be traveling back to the user. And once it receives this requester, this user synac, then once again it will acknowledge it, okay, I have got your request. So this is called like three-way handshake. So this is the first way, this is second, return traffic, and once again we are returning it back to the server. So that's why we call it as a three-way handshake. So once it is TCP three-way handshake is done, then the session is installed. We check it, okay, the session is being initiated. So that's what it is happening in the TCP three-way handshake. Now, if you take any of the firewall in general, I'm not talking about the specifically for the Palo Alto firewalls. So, or in any of the organization, what they basically do, we are having three types of zone. They can be multiple. We usually divide it, but yeah, majority of these type of things are like trust, untrust. So trust is our type of like internal network, which is known to us. We are very confident about it. Okay, this is my network. While untrust can be said as an internet, where you don't know that these users are legitimate, or it can be malicious user attackers. Like lot of guys can be there, right? Another type of zone is our DMZ. So DMZ is type of demilitarized zone where most of the servers are residing. So why we put it as a DMZ? Because some of the users from internet can be accessing this. So that's why we put it like less security on these servers, or we put it as like demilitarized zone, less security as compared to our internal networks. Now, if we talk about the general concepts or what we configure on the firewalls, we usually allow traffic from internal to internet, or let me choose a color. We usually allow communication from here to there. We do not restrict users to go to internet unless they are not using any explicit or block categories. Let us suppose they are trying to use any adult category or gambling or Any like what else could be like the social networking also nowadays are blocked, or entertainment is also blocked. So it just depends on the policy of your company. What are the things you want to restrict, or what are the things you want to allow? So these can be blocked. Remaining all can be allowed. So like we allow communication but block some of the specific categories of website that please do not allow access to these websites. Another thing, like from untrust to DMZ servers. So this is also usually allowed, but that also depends on this AAA. AAA stands for the authentication, authorization, and accounting. So I think you are aware of this term, or you are not. You want me explain more on this?
Yeah, we know that.
You know it, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Sometimes I hear it no, sometimes hear it as yes. So we want me to explain or no? Guys, just like try to explain. So if you write yes, I'm little confused that whether you want me to explain, or if you don't, okay, just write I know it. Or you can speak also. You can unmute yourself and you can speak. That's not a problem. Explain, please. Okay, fine. So here, the AAA, the first is our authentication. So, guys, I understand that some of the guys might be knowing it, but let's take the least person who knows less so that everybody can be on the par. So, the first thing is like authentication. Whenever we are configuring, let us suppose this is a banking server or any of the banking website, the very first thing is like authentication. Any of the user from internet is coming to here any banking website, what I will do, you will like open the page, but in order to application, in order to access more things or your accounts and everything, the very first thing is required the authentication, that are you the authenticated user to access those resources or not. So that is our authentication, that okay, you have some uh, identity, you have your username and password, based on that one we verified you, okay, you are the authenticated user, then I give you the permission to access some more resources, right? So this is our authentication. Another type is our authorization. So authorization is basically like how much permission or how much limit or access you have in your account. Let us suppose you are a banking customer, right? So what you can do, you logged on to the website, you checked your balance, you uh, checked your transactions, what is there. But if it comes to change your address of your communication, you might not be allowed. You're not authorized to change your communication address to your bank account, or in fact of yours. So for that one, what can we do? You need a bank employee, right? Who is the bank user or who is working on the bank? They have authorization or they have access to change your address. So what you do, you just request them, you make a call or you upload some of the documents. Now they will amend those addresses or the values in your bank account, and next time when you log on, those changes will be reflected. So you don't have authority to change the address, but you have authorization to check your balance. So this is like a permissions things, that your authenticated user, you are good, but you are allowed to do certain type of things, but you're not allowed to do certain type of things. So this is like happening in the uh, routers. Let us suppose you are allowed to configure certain parameters. Let us suppose you want to see some of the things. You can run the show command, but you cannot run the config command. So you're not authorized to make changes on your routers or on the firewalls, but you are allowed to see what are the configuration out there. So this is type of authorization we have. The third A stands for accounting, and accounting is basically about the logs. That what are the things you are doing here, that is telling you the logs. So whatever we are doing, we are authenticating, you are being authorized, you are doing changes. Now it's your responsibility to log the things, what is happening and what is not happening. So if any incident happens or any good or bad guys do something good or bad, then we can trace back it to that why it has happened. So for every authentication and authorization, we take a record, we account all those information, we keep logs. We are having a lot of logging servers and log forwarded. Like, so we use the external log servers as well. They are having in TVs of data. They are storing logs. That whatever even single change you are doing, you're just clicking some of the things you are committing, or whatever the things you are doing, doing, they are being recorded under the accounting, so that if any thing happens, then we can track back to you. It does not mean that you are working in any banking environment, you done some transactions, you transferred millions of money in your account, and you just gone. Nobody can track you. Even uh, every small things are tracked, and you can trace it back that okay, this guy has done this transaction, it has been transferred from your account to that account. Similar things to like any of the firewalls or routers, that if you are making any changes in the configuration, you made any device down, you put some firewall for your firewall down, we can track it back to you that okay, this guy has made these changes. Sometimes what people do, they like restart some of the things, right? Let us suppose I restart my Cisco router or firewalls, then logs will be deleted, right? People may like hide themselves. So for that, we use the external logging servers. Whatever the changes you are doing, you just commit it instantly. Those logs are being forwarded to the external servers. You just burn that website firewall, you burn that router, but it's still those logs are stored on the external logging server, and you cannot touch that, you cannot delete that. So that's what people are doing, and you can be tracked it back. So that was about this AAA, and these are like standard things what we configure on these firewalls. And yeah, and one more thing, like we also have this communication allowed from internal to DMZ. But yeah, from DMZ to internal, we usually do not allow. But yeah, if it is required, then we can allow that. So for the specific some of the servers, we can allow it, but usually we do not follow that. And same thing is from the internet to internal, that is also not allowed. These are the standard rules. I'm not talking about the Palo Alto firewalls. So now let's talk about the Palo Alto firewalls, that what is happening in the Palo Alto firewall. So for that, let's go to the default one. What are the default policies? So the first policy we are having, that is inter-zone default. So inter-zone default, this is deny. This is the default policy, which do exist on the firewall. So interzone means that if you are going from one zone to another zone, let us suppose you are an user traffic, that is you are in the trust zone, and you are going to access the internet, and if you have not configured any of the policy, by default, you will not be allowed to access that. This is not allowed until you configure a security policy to allow users to go to internet. So this is, I'm talking about the default, that this is the default policy. Another is default policy, that is intra-zone. Intra-zone means within the zone, the communication is allowed. So if from any of the firewall, if the two users, they are on the trust zone or two networks, let us suppose one user is on 10.1 or 10 network, we can say 10.0.0.0 network, another user is 172.16. something network, but both the users are on the trust interface of the firewall, then they can ping to each other. But if any of the user is on the internet and not in fact the internet, let us suppose on the DMZ, right? There is a server in DMZ that is can be like 192.168 network. Then that from trust to DMZ, by default, the communication will not be allowed because it will be hitting our interzone default policy. But for this case, we will be allowed to use resources using our intrazone default. So it's quite, I think, understanding for you. Let me switch it to the firewall. Let's have a look on the GUI that what is there and how our Palo Alto firewall looks like. So meanwhile, any questions on it? Whatever I have just told you?
No, thank you.
Okay, that's great. So this is, let me just brief you. This is like EVNG platform I use for the lab session. If you want to use it, in fact, I will highly recommend if you continue with the course, then you have to use it because without lab, you cannot do anything. Or in fact, it's really difficult to understand that what is ongoing, right? Just theory doesn't help in the real environment. You have to be very good with the hands-on. Then only you can configure the things in the real life environment. You can get a job, but if you don't do the hands-on, then it's really going to difficult that how to navigate to the GUI, right? So this is the EVNG platform. I can show you here. This you can download it free. That is not paid version. This is like EVNG, right? You can go to this. Don't go for professional. That is chargeable. Go to for community edition should be somewhere. Okay, so use that free version. You don't have to pay anything. All right. I think Pro there is somewhere I'm not getting. Okay, let me check it. Okay, downloads. It's here. Let's see there. EVNG Professional, and this is a free EVNG Community Edition. So you can download it from here. There are three like sources: Google, Mega, or Zigbearer. You can use any of them to download. This is like EVNG image you are having a virtual server, but in order to run this EVNG, you also need an hypervisor. So for that, you can use VMware Workstation, but I think Workstation is not free, so you can use VMware Player. So first you have to install this VMware Player or VMware Workstation. It depends on you what you want to choose. So you just have to download first this VMware Workstation Player, install it first, and then import this EVNG on this VMware Player. And after that, once you these two things, now you need the images for the routers or the firewall, right? So that images you can get it from me. That I have those. So these things are free. You can set it up on your machine, but your laptop should be having a little configuration. Minimum is 8 GB. If you have below 8 GB, it's a really hard time to run with firewall. People have used it in the 4 GB as well, but for the firewall, it is not recommended because like it take 1 hour or two just come up. So it's really not suggested. But if you have 16 GB, then you're in the comfort zone. That is the best. you can just do two or more things parallelly. You can like run HA or more firewalls together. So let me go to back to our topology here. So here I have taken a firewall, and on the firewall we are having like interfaces. The one of the interface management is there, and this management interface I have connected to this PC 192.168.1.1, and here I will be accessing the GUI, or you can say the management of the firewall. The all the whatever the configurations I'll be doing on the firewall, that will I will do from here. And this user I have taken for the test traffic, that I will be initiating traffic to this machine VPC. Basically, this should be a server for the demonstration, but that is basically a PC. So I will try to set up a communication from this to this. Okay. So let me open this 192.168.1.10. And 1.10 is the IP address of this management interface. This. So if I log into this 192.168.1.10, it will open up the GUI of the firewall. So that's what I'm going to do. Let me hit it once again for your understanding. Just make sure that you are hitting this HTTPS, because it does not allow you to use the port 80. Means that our HTTP, we have to use 443, that is HTTPS. So here we go, and the password I have that admin and admin123. Once you,
So, Anuj,
yeah,
management
yeah.
interface means, uh,
Mhm.
hello.
Yeah, please go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, management interface means which we are providing the policies within this management interface, right? Or
This is like for accessing your firewall through an external resource. That's it. You can say if you remember your Cisco router, you are having a port, right? I don't console port, something we call it, right? So from that console port,
yes,
we access that Cisco router, right? So that's what we can say that is a management port. Like we just connect
okay,
it,
okay,
we configure it, and just forget it. That's it.
yeah.
So that's how our GUI looks like. We are having a dashboard here. The first thing, ACC, monitor, policies, objects, network, and device. If you go to the dashboard here, we are seeing at the device name as a PAVM, management IP address, whatever we saw, we configured 192.168.1.10, that is showing here. Net mask is using, as usual, 255.255.255.0. IPv6 we have not configured, so showing as an unknown. The model I'm using the virtual machine. If you are using any 820 or 850, it will be showing here. Or if you are using the like 5000 series 5220. So these are the types of hardware we are coming. Like whenever the Palo Alto Networks is releasing, so they are releasing the hardware. So you can like buy a box of the firewall using these high end or low end devices. Another type of things like you can use it for the use the image from the PAVM, and that you can configure on your any virtual cloud. I'm using hypervisor ESXi or NSX, wherever you want, based on the space you are having. Or if you want to install on the cloud, then also you can install it using the ESXi servers, and there also you can play it with the firewall. Serial number, it is showing as unknown because we don't have a license for it. So that's why it is showing as a VM license as none. So whenever we don't have the license, we are having some limited functionalities. If you can configure everything, but just two things you cannot do. You cannot see the traffic, and like it's for the inspection. Another thing, I think for the URL filtering or something, there is some restrictions. Remaining, you can do everything. There's a chance that anyone is stopping you from configuration. You can do anything with that. Software release we are using as of now 9.0.4, and remaining thing you can see that what are the versions we are using, right? So We have just made it up. So it is the uptime, it is showing as 131. So whenever you go for the interviews, some of the users, like interviewer, ask that how you check the uptime of your firewall. So these are like silly questions, but they want to know that whether you have worked on the firewall or not. So they ask me some, because I remember I gave an interview the when I was just like very new to the networking, and I said that I have worked on the BGP. So he just told me that, can you tell me that how to check that from how long the your BGP membership is up, or it is down. So then from how long it will be down. So it was really difficult. I just gave some BGP uptime, some random command, because I haven't worked on the BGP, but I said that, okay, I have worked upon. So he just asked simple question, but it just gives that one command, right? Show IP BGP neighborship, show IP BGP neighbor, and it's just on the right side, it just shows the uptime or downtime. So it's just like simple thing we used to do, but if you haven't worked, then it's really. Now he easily said to me whenever he applied, I said him that, okay, I will just get that you have worked upon, because let us suppose you are in the situation that you might have not worked on the firewall, but you have on which hardware platforms you're going on my machine. So that can also be causing, because the same time I'm teaching you, it is like running VMware. That is, let me show you one thing that what is the status of my